The shuttle doors slid open with a soft metallic breath, releasing Rhea Calder into the atrium of the Astral Lyceum. Light scattered across the crystalline floor, refracting into ribbons that danced along the vaulted ceiling. Students of dozens of worlds drifted through the space, scaled, feathered, translucent, towering, but every motion paused when she stepped forward. Silence followed her like a shadow. Rhea kept her shoulders relaxed, chin slightly lowered, palms open at her sides. A posture of peace, her instructors had called it. A reminder that she was here as a diplomat, not a threat. Still, she could feel the tension ripple through the hall. Eyes widened. Muscles tightened. A few species, those evolved on soft, tranquil worlds, instinctively stepped behind pillars or shifted toward exits. She didn't blame them. Humanity's reputation had reached these halls long before she had. A whisper, sharp and barely contained, rose from a cluster of winged students perched near the balcony rail. "Is that her? The Deathworlder?" Another voice, lower, answered, "Look at the way she walks. Like she's mapping the room. They say the predators on her planet hunt through storms." Rhea kept her gaze forward, careful not to meet anyone's eyes. Eye contact, she'd been warned, was sometimes interpreted as a challenge among species who depended on subtle cues. She counted her breaths, slow, even, controlled, and moved toward the orientation chamber. Her boots made almost no sound on the glass-like floor, but every step landed with weight. Not physical weight, she was small compared to most species here, but presence. A kind of grounded steadiness that came from growing up in gravity slightly heavier than most habitable worlds. Her mother used to call it Earth in the bones. A memory flickered at the edge of her mind, her mother's voice on the last morning before Rhea left for the Lyceum. "Show them who we are, but do it without fists." Rhea had nodded then, not realizing how heavy that promise would feel once she was standing under 100 alien stares. The corridor leading to her first class glowed with soft indigo light. She reached the doorway, and stopped. A tall figure blocked the entrance. Broad shoulders, emerald-tinted skin, a ridge of bone sweeping back from his forehead like a sculpted crown. He wore the Lyceum uniform with tailored arrogance. Rhea recognized him instantly from the briefing files. Carthaz Velrune. Heir to the Velrune dynastic compact. Top of his year. Known for a smile that never reached his eyes, and a habit of choosing targets he believed beneath him. His expression now matched the description perfectly. "You're in my way," Rhea said quietly. "Not confrontational. Just factual." Carthaz tilted his head as if studying an unusual insect. "Interesting. The human speaks." His voice carried the fluid lilt of his people but underlined with cold amusement. "We've heard your kind are volatile." I expected more snarling. Rhea kept her hands open. "If you'll move, I need to take my seat." He let a small gravstone drop from his palm, a smooth sphere that pulsed with shifting weight. It fell directly in front of her boot, heavy enough to crack the floor if she stepped wrong. A typical Velrune upperclassman tactic. See how fast the newcomer reacts. See if they flinch. Rhea didn't flinch. She simply shifted 1 foot a precise inch to the side, allowing the sphere to thud harmlessly next to her. "Your test is over," she said. Something flickered in his expression, annoyance, then curiosity. Not even startled. Fascinating. He stepped aside at last, but not without adding, "Let's see how long that calm lasts." She entered the classroom without replying. The lecture chamber was shaped like a rising helix, rows spiraling upward around a central holographic dais. When Rhea crossed the threshold, a hush fell as sudden as a dropped curtain. Conversations died mid-sentence. A few students straightened in their seats, their shimmering limbs tightening in instinctive caution. The instructor, a crystalline Viori named Heleth, paused in the middle of projecting a diagram. Their translucent body refracted light into fractured rainbows. "Ah," Heleth said, voice chiming softly, "our final arrival. Rhea Calder of Earth." Dozens of eyes moved toward her, each set reflecting a different emotion: alarm, fascination, distrust. Rhea climbed to an empty seat near the outer curve. She moved slowly, giving skittish students space. Some shifted even farther away, trying to be polite while failing entirely. A three-eyed student whispered too loudly, her heart rate, it's elevated. Their species could perceive bioelectric currents. Why is she so calm yet so charged? Rhea opened her datapad and focused on the lesson notes, letting the voices fade. She had expected this. Fear disguised as curiosity. Curiosity sharpened into assumption. Heleth resumed speaking. Today, we begin with an introduction to cross-species negotiation. This class emphasizes non-aggressive communication. A skill all of you. Their speech halted as a flash of psychic pressure brushed through the room. A probing mind skimming for surface thoughts. Most students didn't react. Rhea did. It felt like cold fingers tapping the back of her skull. She stiffened slightly before she forced her muscles to relax. Someone in the room was trying to read her, likely out of fear or simple fascination. Not unusual here, but dangerous. Humans didn't respond well to mental intrusion. Their neural patterns were unpredictable. A sharp gasp came from the row ahead. A small, fox-like student jerked back, eyes wide with alarm. Her mind, it's like storms. How do humans function in that? Rhea lowered her gaze, cheeks warming. She wasn't angry, just tired. Already. The class continued, but tension clung to the air. Halfway through the session, Heleth called for paired dialogue practice. Rhea knew she'd be chosen. She also knew no one would willingly partner with her. The silence that followed Heleth's request confirmed it. Karthas's voice cut through the room. I'll take the human. Of course he would. Heleth glanced between them, clearly sensing a social undercurrent yet unable to pinpoint it. If both parties agree, they said gently. Rhea nodded once. She had no reason to refuse. They faced each other on the holographic platform. The simulation projected a negotiation scenario, two estranged colonies disputing resource boundaries. The task was simple: open dialogue, establish shared interests, propose compromise. Karthas didn't bother with the script. Instead he leaned in, voice low enough for only her to hear. A word of advice, he said. Stay quiet. Some species here frighten easily. A single wrong tone and they'll paint your whole kind as beasts. Rhea held his gaze for the first time. Calm. Unblinking. Unthreatening, yet not submissive. Then they'll have to learn, she replied softly, that silence isn't weakness. His smile faltered. Before he could speak again, Heleth dismissed the class. Students scattered quickly, creating a clear path around Rhea as though she radiated invisible danger. Only Karthas lingered at the doorway. You hide behind quiet, he said, voice colder now. But you'll slip eventually. When you do, everyone will see what you really are. Rhea walked past him without a word. When she stepped into the corridor, she exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Truthfully, she wasn't hiding behind silence. She was clinging to it. Because she knew exactly how dangerous the alternative could be. And she wasn't here to prove their fears right. Not yet. 3 days passed, and Rhea's presence no longer caused gasps or scattered footsteps. Now it produced something heavier, watchfulness. Conversations quieted whenever she entered a hallway. Doors shut quicker. Students adjusted their paths to maintain distance, not out of hostility but because they feared misreading her. Karthas noticed the shift too. And he did not like it. The first accident came during morning transit. A walkway bridge spanned across the academy's inner gardens, lush canopies suspended in floating gravity wells. Students moved across it in steady lines. Rhea stepped onto the platform, noting the faint hum beneath her boots. Halfway to the other side, the hum stuttered. Then dropped. Weight surged under her feet as the bridge sagged several centimeters, drawing startled cries. A few students clutched rails that weren't designed for sudden stress. Rhea reacted before thought. She shifted her stance, lowering her center of gravity to absorb the change. Her knees softened, an earth instinct from a childhood of tremors and shifting terrain. She reached for the nearest student, a trembling of iron with iridescent wings. "Hold on," she said. The bridge stabilized a second later. The maintenance lights flickered red across the walkway. A sharp laugh echoed from the observation deck above. "Such admirable balance," Carthos called down. "Humans cling well when the ground misbehaves." She didn't reply. The maintenance drones rushed in, blocking the area. Rhea guided the Aviron to safety and continued her route. But she felt the message clearly. He wanted her off balance. He wanted a crack. The second incident was less public. During an afternoon break, Rhea found a quiet alcove near the botanical section. Broad leaves glowed with subtle bioluminescence, casting cool green light over her notes. She had 10 minutes before her next class, just enough to review an upcoming negotiation scenario. She opened the holopad. A flicker passed across the edge of her vision. At first she thought it was a reflection. But the air thickened, growing colder. Leaves trembled though there was no breeze. Something moved between the trees. A shape, massive, low to the ground, prowling with deliberate silence. Her heart kicked once, a single hard beat. The silhouette emerged fully, 6 limbs, obsidian fur, eyes like molten amber. A predator. One she recognized from academy files. A Trellinaar abyssal stalker. A creature from a moon known for hunting in absolute darkness. But it wasn't real. The edges of the image shimmered slightly, betraying its psychic origin. Someone was projecting fear. Rhea inhaled slowly. "Carthos," she said into the open space. The illusion's jaw split wide as it lunged. Rhea didn't move. At the last moment, the creature dissolved into smoke. A faint psychic pulse rippled outward, brushing her thoughts like a hand testing a locked door. Footsteps approached. Carthos appeared from behind a column, a small psi-emitter clasped between 2 fingers. The device glowed faintly, its energy coils fading. His expression brimmed with smug fascination. "You didn't even flinch," he said. "Are humans incapable of fear?" She closed her holopad. "Fear isn't the same as panic." "Semantics," he said with a shrug. "Your species boasts about instincts. I wanted to see them. You're wasting your time. On the contrary." He leaned slightly closer. "You are the most interesting thing in this academy." Rhea turned away. That seemed to amuse him even more. The third incident happened the following morning in the lecture hall. Students filed in with their datapads and nutrient canisters. Rhea took her seat quietly, already sensing something was off. The air held a faint chemical tang, barely noticeable, but enough to raise a subtle alert in the back of her mind. The instructor began the lesson. Holographic displays shimmered to life. A few minutes passed. Then a student coughed sharply. Another rubbed their eyes, blinking hard. A third leaned forward, breathing in shallow gasps. Rhea recognized the signs instantly. The irritant wasn't dangerous, but it was designed to provoke discomfort in species with high sensory sensitivity. Humans weren't one of them. She scanned the room. Carthos lounged 3 rows back, arms folded, pretending to focus on the lecture. His eyes occasionally flicked toward her, waiting for a reaction. He wanted her to respond. Let anger show. Give him something he could twist. Rhea remained still. When the irritant finally cleared, Carthos rose from his seat and stepped past her desk, lowering his voice. "Your tolerance is remarkable," he murmured. "Most species here are already reporting symptoms." "It's called biology," she replied without looking up. He chuckled softly. "Or brutality." Rhea met his eyes this time. "You're mistaking endurance for violence." "Am I?" Carthos straightened, gaze sharpening. "Or are you mistaking restraint for strength?" She said nothing. For the first time, his confidence shifted. Not broken, just fraying. Later that day, as she walked toward the observation garden for a study session, a small voice called out behind her. "Wait, human!" She turned. A slender aquatic girl hurried toward her, webbed fingers clutching a datapad to her chest. Seely. They shared 2 classes but had never spoken. Her gills fluttered nervously. Can I talk to you?" Rhea stepped aside to give her space. "Of course." Seely hesitated, eyes darting toward the corridor behind them. "You need to be careful. Karthos is planning something." She swallowed, voice trembling. "He says the Academy brought in a predator species without proper screening. That he'll be the one to expose the risk." "That risk being me," Rhea said gently. Seely nodded. "He thinks you're dangerous." Rhea sighed. "Most of them do. But he wants proof." Seely lowered her voice. "He's not just provoking you. He's trying to make you snap." Rhea appreciated the warning. "Thank you." Seely held her gaze longer than most dared. "I don't think you're what they say." That simple expression of trust struck deeper than any insult from Karthos. Rhea offered a faint smile. "I'm trying not to be." The garden shimmered under soft lights when she entered later. It was meant to be a sanctuary, quiet streams, luminous moss, drifting pollen that sparkled like stars. She sat on a low bench, letting the stillness settle over her. She didn't notice Karthos until he was already there. He held a slim device in his hand, more complex than the psi emitter. Its coils spiraled like living metal, pulsing in sync with his heartbeat. "A stronger test today," he said. Rhea rose slowly. "Karthos, this is enough." "Not yet." He activated the device. A psychic wave crashed into her mind, raw, invasive, crafted to dredge up every deep instinct. Images erupted, storms, collapsing cliffs, predators roaring through smoke. Childhood memories twisted into nightmare shapes. Rhea staggered, breath catching. The wave grew sharper. Then something inside her, something ancient, honed by generations of danger, pushed back. The rebound struck Karthos with violent clarity. His eyes widened. He gasped and collapsed, the device sparking as it fell from his hand. Rhea caught him before he hit the ground. Students nearby screamed, rushing to the scene. Their fear painted her as the cause. Within minutes, emergency drones arrived. A dean followed, face dark with alarm. Rhea stood still, hands raised. "He attacked me," she said. But no one heard her over the rising accusations. She realized, as they led her away, that silence had protected her for days. Now it might destroy everything. The council chamber was colder than any place Rhea had been in the academy. Not in temperature, its climate was artificially neutral, but in atmosphere. The walls rose in sweeping arcs of polished quartz, each panel reflecting the tense faces of the 12 council members seated around the dais. Between them, a holographic display waited idle, its pale glow washing faint shadows across the room. Rhea stood alone on the center platform, wrists free but posture rigid. She wasn't restrained physically, she didn't need to be. The stares were more binding than any cuffs could be. She felt the weight of judgment pressing from every direction. A soft chime signaled the beginning of the hearing. Grand Arbiter Thaurin, a species of crystalline filaments that shimmered with soft light, leaned forward. "Rhea Calder of Earth," Thaurin said, voice resonant and oddly melodic. "You stand before us to clarify the events of yesterday's incident in the Botanical Observation Garden. Multiple witnesses reported you in proximity to an injured student. Others claim you were the cause." Rhea kept her breathing steady. "I didn't harm anyone." Several council members murmured. Thaurin raised a hand, silencing the room. "You will be allowed to speak. But first, we will hear the testimony of Karthos Velrun." Rhea swallowed once, the motion small and controlled. 2 aides escorted Karthos into the chamber. He looked different, pale at the edges of his emerald skin, jaw tight, eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Yet his posture held its usual polish. When he stepped onto the speaking platform opposite Rhea, he refused to look at her. Thowron addressed him. "State your account." Carthag's voice was steady, but brittle. "I encountered Rhea Calder in the garden. She seemed agitated. When I approached to check on her, she turned aggressive. A psychic surge followed. I lost consciousness. The next thing I recall is waking in the medical wing." A rustle moved around the chamber. Rhea inhaled sharply. "That's not what happened." Thowron nodded toward her. "You may respond." "Carthage wasn't checking on me," she said. "He brought a psi amplifier and used it to project a fear hallucination directly into my mind. The device malfunctioned when I resisted. The rebound hit him." "Convenient," muttered a counselor with layered wings. "It's the truth," Rhea replied calmly. Another council member leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Why would an upperclassman attack a fellow student? Especially one he barely knows?" Rhea held her ground. "Because he wanted a reaction. Something he could use to paint humans as unstable." Carthage finally looked at her then, just a flicker, a trace of something unsure. Thowron interlaced filaments, creating a soft glow. "Do you have evidence?" Rhea hesitated. "No physical evidence. The device Carthage held was destroyed." The council murmured again, this time with sharper tones. Before Thowron could speak, a small voice rose from the rear entrance. "Yes. There is evidence." All heads turned. Celie stood in the doorway, posture stiff with nerves. Her soft blue skin glistened under the chamber lights, gills fluttering rapidly. She clutched her datapad close as she stepped forward. Thowron gestured. "Identify yourself." "Celie, first-year diplomacy track." Her voice shook but grew stronger with each step. "I have footage from the garden." Carthage stiffened. Rhea's chest tightened. Thowron nodded to an attendant. "Display the recording." The chamber dimmed. The holoscreen ignited. The footage unfolded clearly. Carthage entering the garden. Carthage activating the psi amplifier. The psychic wave hitting Rhea. Carthage losing control of the device. Rhea catching him as he fell. Nothing else. No aggression, no strike, no harm inflicted by her. A long, heavy silence filled the chamber when the recording ended. Thowron's light dimmed, then brightened in contemplation. "Carthage Velrun," the arbiter said, "do you contest this evidence?" Carthage's hands curled at his sides. His carefully maintained confidence finally cracked. He swallowed. "No." A quiet gasp came from the council seats. Thowron turned toward Rhea. "You saved him." Rhea nodded once. "Why?" Her answer came without hesitation. "Because it was the right thing to do." The arbiter tilted its crystalline frame. "Even after he targeted you?" "Yes." A ripple of surprise moved across the council. One member, a slender figure with silver tendrils, leaned forward. "Your species is known for reactive aggression. Yet you showed remarkable restraint." Rhea kept her tone even. "Strength doesn't mean striking first. It means choosing when not to." Carthage closed his eyes for a moment, then forced himself to speak. "I acted out of arrogance," he said quietly. "I wanted to expose a threat. Instead I became one." He exhaled shakily. "I apologize. Publicly and without excuse." Rhea met his gaze. She saw shame, confusion, and something else, understanding, uncomfortable but genuine. She inclined her head. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. Thowron rose. "The council finds Rhea Calder not responsible for the incident. The psi amplifier was used unlawfully. Carthage Velrun will undergo disciplinary review." Carthage bowed his head. Rhea exhaled slowly. Relief didn't wash over her. Something deeper did, release. The burden she had carried since stepping into this academy lightened just enough to breathe without the weight pressing her ribs. Thowron's glow flickered in a softer pattern as they addressed her. "You have shown restraint under pressure. That is a quality valued in diplomacy. We welcome your continued studies here. Rhea bowed respectfully. Thank you. The chamber doors opened with a low harmonic hum, dismissing the congregation. Students, aides, and counselors drifted out, murmuring. As Rhea stepped into the corridor, Celie hurried to her side. You okay? Celie asked, breath quick. Rhea offered a faint smile. I am now. Celie's shoulders relaxed. I'm glad. You didn't deserve any of this. Rhea started walking, the crystalline floor casting fragmented light across her boots. Students passing by gave her a new kind of look, not fear, not suspicion, but curiosity tinged with respect. A pair of iron bowed slightly as she passed. A group of scaled students shifted aside without shrinking away. Even those who had kept their distance seemed to reconsider her silently. Celie glanced at the growing attention and whispered, "They're seeing you differently." Rhea took in the corridor, the same hall she had entered days ago under a storm of assumptions. Now the air felt lighter. I didn't come here to frighten anyone, Rhea said. I know, Celie replied gently. But you changed something today. Rhea paused near a window overlooking the floating gardens. Sunlight glimmered across the petals suspended in gravity wells. For the first time since arriving, she allowed herself a breath of quiet pride. I proved something, she murmured. Not everything. But something. Celie smiled. Enough to make them question their stories about humans. Rhea looked out at the sprawling academy, its towers shimmering like carved starlight. Good, she said. They should question them. A soft echo drifted from behind. Carthos stood several paces away, expression sober. I meant what I said, he murmured. I misjudged you. Rhea held his gaze. Then learn from it. He nodded once, deeply, and stepped back. Celie nudged her, whispering, You're terrifying in the quietest way. Rhea let out a small, genuine laugh. I'm trying to be the opposite. They walked on, side by side, the academy no longer shrinking from her presence but adjusting to it, reshaping itself around the truth she had forced into the open. A truth that would follow her far beyond these halls. The galaxy feared humans for the wrong reasons, she thought. Now they're finally learning the right ones. The academy felt different the following morning. The halls were still bright and crystalline, the air still clean and faintly floral from the botanical vents, but something beneath the surface had shifted. A subtle recalibration. Students didn't fall silent as Rhea passed, instead, they watched with a kind of thoughtful caution, as if re-evaluating everything they thought they knew. Rhea moved through the corridor with her usual composed steps. She was aware of every glance, not with discomfort but with a quiet readiness. It wasn't fear anymore, it was expectation. Curiosity. Even something close to respect. Celie hurried beside her, trying to match Rhea's longer stride. They're not avoiding you now, she said, voice barely above a whisper. It's strange, but good. It's new, Rhea replied. That's enough. Celie hesitated. You don't look relieved. Rhea didn't answer immediately. They approached the lecture chamber, where faint chatter drifted out the open doors. There's still work to do, she finally said. One truth doesn't erase an entire reputation. Celie nodded, though she didn't fully understand the heaviness behind Rhea's words. How could she? Celie's species didn't carry the burden of being labeled the galaxy's cautionary tale. Inside the chamber, students were already shifting into their seats. Rhea slipped into her usual place near the outer curve. Carthos sat alone in the second row. He looked thinner than usual, his posture straight yet subdued. When their eyes met, he offered a quiet nod. Not an apology, he'd already given that, but a gesture of recognition, the kind shared between two people who had survived something they couldn't easily explain to others. Rhea nodded back. Heleth, the crystalline instructor, entered with a soft chime of movement. Today, they announced, we begin a deeper module on instinctive diplomacy, understanding the biological impulses that drive conflict. Several students shifted uneasily. The last 2 days had made instinct a raw topic. Helitha's refracted glow pulsed with gentle reassurance. Instinct is not shameful, they said. It is context. To navigate the galaxy, you must first understand your own root responses. A few heads turned toward Rhea. Helith noticed but did not comment. Instead, they gestured toward the central dais. We begin with a pair assessment. You will each undergo a controlled simulation designed to trigger instinctive decisions. This is not a confrontation. It is an evaluation of response patterns. A murmur rippled through the class. Helith continued, I will select the pairs. Rhea expected to be paired with someone cautious, someone who wouldn't risk provoking her. But Helith surprised her. Rhea Calder and Karthas Velrun. A silence swept through the chamber. Students exchanged glances, uncertain whether this was brilliance or madness. Rhea rose slowly. Karthas did the same, though something about his movements seemed deliberate, almost humble. They stepped onto the dais facing each other. The instructor activated the chamber. The walls darkened. Holographic mist curled upward as projected light patterns spun around them. The simulation shifted through different environments, open plains, dense forests, metallic corridors, searching for triggers. Rhea steadied her breathing. Karthas spoke first, voice low and controlled. I won't use anything against you this time. I know, she replied. You trust me? He asked quietly. No, she said. But I trust your remorse. He accepted that answer without protest. The first pattern locked in. A narrow corridor unfolded, dimly lit, with distant vibrations like approaching footsteps. Not threatening, just unsettling. Rhea waited. The vibration grew louder until a holographic figure flickered into view. Not a predator, not a weapon, just a shadow-shaped silhouette designed to be neutral yet unpredictable. The simulation's purpose was simple, provoke instinct, not fear. The figure approached. Rhea shifted her weight subtly, ready to move if needed. Karthas mirrored her, though his body language was far less guarded. Your stance, he said quietly. It's balanced. It's habit, she answered. The shadow halted a few meters away, then vanished. Another replaced it, taller this time, with undefined edges. The system was testing how close proximity changed a responder's behavior. Rhea kept her posture loose. Karthas tightened his jaw. You're calmer than I am, he muttered. Rhea didn't deny it. Your species evolved with centralized dominance hierarchies. Mine evolved reacting to immediate danger without waiting for a leader. He gave a hollow laugh. That explains a lot. Suddenly, the environment shifted again. A sharp blast of artificial wind swept through the corridor. The shadow lunged, faster, closer, clearer than before. Karthas flinched. Rhea stepped forward. A simple, instinct-driven motion, intercept rather than retreat. The shadow dissolved on contact. The wind died. Silence returned. The reaction had been immediate, effortless, a reflex shaped by generations surviving chaos. The room felt it. Helith certainly did. Rhea stepped back, expression unchanged. Karthas stared at her. Not in fear. In comprehension. You didn't hesitate. I chose the safest path, she said. If something comes at you too fast, you neutralize the uncertainty. He studied her, thoughtful. You're not dangerous because you strike. You're dangerous because you decide precisely when not to. She wasn't sure if that was meant as praise or a warning. Before she could reply, Helith chimed for the simulation to cease. The environment dissolved, returning to the bright, spiraling chamber. The instructor drifted closer. Thank you, Helith said. That was insightful. The class watched them leave the dais in utter stillness. When Rhea reached her seat, murmurs began circling through the chamber like cautious currents. She stepped in to protect him. No aggression. That reaction time. Humans are different, but not what we thought. For once, Rhea didn't shrink from their voices. After class, a small crowd waited outside. Not hostile. Not distant. More like a group afraid to approach but too curious not to try. A scaled student spoke first. "Rhea, could you join our study group later?" An avian student added, "We'd like to understand you better. Your perspective." Rhea blinked, surprised. "If you're sure." They nodded eagerly. Seely beamed at her side. Carthos approached last, waiting until the others dispersed. "You didn't have to step toward that projection." "Yes, I did," she replied. "We shared the simulation." The instinct was the same. Carthos' voice dropped. "I won't forget what you've done. Or what you didn't do." Rhea met his gaze steadily. "Then use that understanding wisely." He nodded and stepped back, not out of fear, out of respect. Rhea walked toward the garden walkway, letting the quiet settle around her. Sunlight filtered through the crystal panes overhead, scattering across her path like shards of captured stars. For the first time since arriving, she felt the academy shifting in her direction, not cowering, not accusing, but opening. Seely jogged beside her. "You changed everything this week." Rhea shook her head. "Not everything." Seely grinned. "Enough to make them rewrite the stories they tell about humans." Rhea looked out over the floating gardens. "Good," she said softly. They needed a new story. A story born not from fear, but from truth. And this time, the entire academy was ready to hear it.